But first, we are going to begin with President Biden's fiery response to the special counsel's report on his handling of classified documents. The special counsel found no criminal charges are warranted, but also detailed evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed some sensitive material. And during a hastily planned press conference yesterday, he strongly disputed an opinion expressed by the special counsel about his age, memory, and mental acuity.
Something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? You know, I guess I just forgot what was going on. I did not share classified information. I did not share it.
With your ghostwriter?
With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
But the special counsel said in the report
no,
that
he did not say that.
Okay.
He did not say that.
But Mr. President,
let me answer your question. The fact of the matter is, what I didn't want repeated, I didn't want him to know, and I didn't read it to him, was I had written a long memorandum to President Obama why we should not be in Afghanistan. And I was multiple pages. And so what I was referring to, I said classified. I should have said it should be private because it was a contact between the president and the vice president as to what was going on. That's what it is referring to. It was not classified information in that document.
All right, so Catherine Herridge is joining us now with a little more on this. So, Catherine, there was a lot of attention paid to the president's memory, but the fact is the report said that, used the term that he willfully retained and disclosed sensitive material. Not classified, but sensitive material. Can you break down the level of classification concerns and why the special counsel said that they would not prosecute?
Okay, so let's take the classification question first. Based on the special counsel's findings, there were two buckets of classified information. Some records were clearly marked classified. They include Afghan records, military strategy, and then there were records that were unmarked classified, so they had no markings, and that's a specific reference to Vice President Biden's personal notebooks and note cards. Special counsel said he took notes during highly classified briefings, including the President's Daily Brief, which is put together by the top intelligence official. It has sensitive sources and methods, and then also National Security Council meetings. And just because they're not marked classified doesn't mean at its core the intelligence is not sensitive. So we're talking sources, methods, what they call specially compartmented information, or SCI, so that's things like human spying, overhead imagery, and when those are lost or compromised, it can take years, decades to replace. I'd also emphasize that these records spanned from his time as a senator to being vice president and later, and as a sitting senator and vice president. In both of those capacities, he had no authority to remove classified information from a secure facility, and he had no authority to put them in personal notes because he could not declassify them himself.
So Special Counsel Jack Smith, as you know, last year brought charges against former President Donald Trump related to the handling of classified documents. President Biden even weighed in on this with an interview that he did with Scott Pelley in the past. I want to play some of that.
When you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago, what did you think to yourself, looking at that image?
How that could possibly happen. How anyone could be that irresponsible. And I thought, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods? By that, I mean names of people who helped, or et cetera. And it's just totally irresponsible.
So Republicans are already calling this a double standard this morning, as you can expect. A quote from House Republican leadership reads, "A man too incapable of being held accountable for his mishandling of classified information is certainly unfit for the Oval Office," suggesting that part of the reason that he wasn't charged was because he just didn't see. Well, it's back to sort of the bits about the memory, that there was no intention here. Is the White House saying anything, and can you shed any light on what, when people say there's a double standard being applied here? You know, what is the explanation?
Sure. Okay, so let's talk about the double standard. I would encourage people to go through the special counsel's report. It does include pictures that show records jammed into drawers, boxes abandoned in a garage, an office space. These are not secure facilities, and they really are a mirror image of the kind of pictures that we saw out of Mar-a-Lago. So that's where I think the criticism of a double standard applies. The White House has been pushing back very hard against what they say are characterizations by the special counsel in this investigation, especially what they think they've described as sort of egregious references to his memory. But I think people need to take a step back. Robert Hur is a career prosecutor. He has been described to me as someone who calls balls and strikes. He's a straight shooter. And in his opinion, based on the evidence, he probably couldn't get past reasonable doubt with the jury for a number of reasons. And he said very clearly in this report, some of those key factors involve the president's failing memory. He cited not only the in-person interview, but he also cited the president's interview with a ghostwriter for his memoir and these issues of not remembering dates like when he was vice president and the like. People have to make their own decisions as to whether that was fair game for the special counsel to make those arguments very publicly or whether they thought it crossed a line.
Catherine, great context. Thank you so much for helping us understand a little bit better.